We'll call the June 18th meeting of Morristown City Council to order, and we welcome all those who are present. We'll begin with our invocation, followed by the pledge to the flag. The invocation delivered today by our Morristown Fire Department Chaplain, Robert McCombie. Robert.
Let us pray. Lord, we come to you today, give you honor and praise, thanking you for all you have given us. We thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to come and gather together to study. We just ask for your hand of blessings on the meeting. We ask that you would guide and direct our meeting, that it would be full of wisdom and productivity. Lord, we ask that you would help us to accomplish our work and our goals set before us this day. We ask that you would go with us and keep us in your protection. In all your holy name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Council members, let's check in. All present. We have before us the minutes of the June 4th meeting. If there are no corrections, I'd entertain a motion they be accepted as written. Motion centered. We have a second. We have a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, and the minutes from June 4th are accepted. We'll open the floor first we have three separate times for citizen comments today. The first one is for comments about agenda items only. This would exclude those items to be addressed in the public hearing portion. So if there are other items on the agenda that you wish to bring before the council, this is the time to do it. The guidelines are introduce yourself by name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes. The floor is now open. Seeing no one come, we'll close this portion of the meeting and go to the public hearings. We have three that we will today. The first of which is ordinance number 3633, which was passed on first reading at our previous meeting. This being the ordinance of the City of Morristown to adopt the annual budget for fiscal year 20, which begins July 1st and will end on June 30th, 2020. This is the budget, or the budget setting. It also sets the tax rate, which would be a new tax rate of $1.50 per $100 of assessed property value. The floor is now open with the guidelines that we had before of name and address. Again, this is not a question-answer session, but is a place for you to register your comments and responses that the council or mayor may have. Comes at an appropriate time in the agenda. So the floor is now open.
First of all, I want to thank you, Mayor, for pointing out what I wanted to talk about on the agenda. At first, I wasn't for any tax hikes, but for us to actually get a community center and get what we need for our community, of course, it has to be paid for. And that's what I talked to Mr. Cox about. For anyone to actually think that we're going to get things in our community that's going to advance our community and we can't raise taxes, that's ludicrous. I'm happy that on the first reading that it was approved. I pray that we still would have the community center built with this taxes raised. The pavilion over there at Civic Park would be put up for the children over there and the individuals who live in that community. I would like, which might not be in this budget, a swimming pool put up there at Heritage Park, so that the people in this area of the community will be able to swim in the summertime. Maybe be in next year's budget. That'd be cool. I'm praying that the crosswalk will be put up over at the James and Maine, I got it right this time, for the Uppercuts barbershops. Individuals that are using their barbershop. I don't know if any of you council people have gone over there and talked to them and asked them about their feelings about having a crosswalk put up there. That would be greatly appreciative. They mentioned to me that even over there at West High School, the kids going over there, crossing the street, going to that business, it was sold, I can't think of it at this moment. There needs to be a study at different areas where a lot of people are using, you know, the streets. You know what I'm saying? Crossing the streets is very dangerous in our town, especially the back streets, where you have a lot of people that are speeding. So, I want to give kudos to the officers, even though the lieutenant here, she told me that they've done a program giving away stuffed animals to the children. I didn't know that until some of the officers gave some stuffed animals to the children that we babysit. That was great. The lieutenant was telling me that they've been doing it for years. I had no clue. But that's a good program. I pray that they keep it up. Thank you very much. I finished early again. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Nigel. Anyone else?
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Price. I've lived in this community for 24 years. I live at 5865 Chestnut Drive. And I wanted to speak in support of the tax increase, specifically targeted to the community center. I think that's an asset this community needs and has missed for years. I've lived here 24 years with my family, and we have wished for all 24 years that we had something like this close by to use. I'm getting older, and I think that center would be very important for me and my family later on as we want to keep our health up and exercise as we're older. And it's something also that our community needs in terms of enticing more industry here. It's something that I think industry looks forward to keep good people here and to entice other good people to move to this town. So I think it's an asset that you guys are very forward-thinking and putting into the budget. I think it's necessary. And kudos to you for doing it. Thank you.
What was your address, sir?
5865 Chestnut Oak Drive.
Chestnut Oak?
Yes, sir.
That's in the county, correct?
Yes, it is. But I work in the city and I support industry here.
I understand. Just checking to
Thank
see
you,
your
Jim.
address.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
My name is Linda Noe, 2343 Joe Stevens Road. I live in the county. I own property in the city and pay city taxes. I'm going to take a slightly different tact. It is not that I oppose the community center, but I think a lot more study should be done on the location and the size. $36 million is an incredible amount of money. And I know I was in the work session, you were talking about, well, maybe we'll scale it down. We really don't know what it will be, but you're setting a tax rate, I assume, that will cover the $36 million. And you're putting it on the far, far west end of the town. I would have loved to have seen it, and I think Kay had supported this years ago, up at Heritage Park. I was hoping when you bought that park, that was where you intended to put it. And a central location and just a beautiful, beautiful spot of land. And of course with the heritage and history of that location as well. So my problem is with the size of this, with passing a tax increase that anticipates 36 million, or I assume it does, with continuing costs of operations that you'll have that are not in the tax rate, and with the location. I think much more study should be done in terms, it's never too late to turn back. But if you start cutting, digging footers and all this, it'll be, oh, but we've committed so much money already, we couldn't possibly think of doing anything else. So I would suggest, I'm sure frivolously, but I'll suggest it anyway, that you postpone this, that you not do a tax increase, and that you actually study this issue and maybe take some polls of people. Where is the best location for this? Where the sinkholes are on the west end? Or maybe up at Heritage Park? Or some other more central location? Thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing and seeing none, we'll close the public portion of this particular ordinance, and we would entertain a motion to adopt. Motion Pettigo. Need a second? Do we have a second? We do have a second. Any questions or discussion from the council? Are we ready to vote? Let's vote. And motion carries 5-2. The next public hearing we have is number 3611.06. This is to amend ordinance 3611 for the city. This is from the annual budget year that is concluding. This is to appropriate an additional $1,312,084. Because we're in public hearing, I'll briefly scan the what those applications are for. One is for $12,984 for the JAG grant, $25,000 for the dog park grant, $185,000 for additional hotel motel tax. This transfer of funds in the amount of $30,289,100 to the General Capital Projects Fund for previously approved contracts from the project's Heritage Park, the City Center Plaza, and matching funds for the economic development, and to increase appropriation in the amount of $2,200,000 in relation to the timing of TDOT projects for West AJ and the airport. This passed, excuse me, on first reading last time. We are now in public hearing, and the floor is now open.
Sorry, I didn't say my address. Nigel Reed, 4265 Oakwood Circle, Apartment B, Morristown, Tennessee, 37814. Very short and sweet. I am for this budget. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing no one else come forward, we will close the public hearing. I will entertain a motion that this ordinance be adopted.
Move for approval.
Motion centered. And we have a second. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. And motion carries and it is approved. The next public hearing we have is for ordinance 3611.07. This is also to amend ordinance number 3611 for the city of Morristown's annual budget of 1819, or FY19 as we refer to it, and to appropriate funds necessary to cover the cost of capital projects in the amount of $494,415. This is necessary due to the timing of certain projects.
Mr. Mayor, just for clarification,
Yes.
this ordinance addresses stormwater funds, so these are stormwater projects, and the timing of getting those projects done across fiscal years.
Anyone who wishes to be heard on this matter, the floor is now open. Seeing no one come forward, the public hearing will close. I will entertain a motion that this ordinance be adopted.
So moved.
Motion Smith. Need a second. Have a second. Any questions or discussion? Are we ready to vote? Let's vote. And that motion also carries. On the agenda, we find two more public hearings, one for ordinance 3632 and resolution 08-19. Those two were postponed after the public hearing was held. The vote was postponed, and the request has been to also continue it to the July 16th meeting.
Yeah.
Let's make the motion on the first one, which is ordinance 3632. We have a motion to continue to July 16th.
So moved.
Motion centered. And we need a second. We have a second. Any discussion or questions?
Just for clarification for the audience's benefit, this comes as a request from the applicant because he's got some details to work out with regard to his development plan and thinks he needs another month to get that done. That's the reason that we support the deferral of this action until that time.
Any questions or discussion again by council? Are we ready to vote? Let's vote. And the motion to continue to July 16th is approved. The same action for resolution 0819, this being the plan of services, the annexation of that property. Do we have a motion to continue? We'll move. Motion Smith, is there a second? And there is a second. Any questions or discussion?
Mayor, you're keeping the public hearing open on both of these as well, correct?
Well, we've had the public hearing. We can continue the public hearing portion of the next. We just, we'll open it back up if that's your preference.
Yes, sir.
All right. Are we ready to vote? Let's vote. That is approved. All right, under new business, we have resolution 0919. This is the resolution of the City Council that authorizes the disbursements to a variety of private, nonprofit, social service agencies. And this is, we appropriate that separately by resolution. And
This is a requirement under state law. It's part of the budget process. When you make contributions to these agencies, these nonprofit groups, you need to go through the resolution process. That's the reason this is before you. All the amounts reflected in this resolution are already incorporated in the budget you've just passed. We need to go through this resolution to satisfy state code. You've worked through a number of workshops to make these allocations to agencies we recommend.
do we have a motion to that recommendation?
Move for approval.
Motion centered. Need a second. And we have a second. Any questions, discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. And that motion carries. Next is the introduction of a first reading of an ordinance. This is ordinance number 3634. It comes on recommendation from the Planning Commission last week. It's an ordinance to amend the city code, the Appendix B, which pertains to the rezoning of Hamlin County tax parcel ID number, as you see the number there posted. Currently addressed as 570 Thompson Creek Road. This is from intermediate business to R3, which is high-density residential district. Josh?
Yes, sir. As you just noted, this is a request from Mr. Followbell, acting on behalf of the property owners of 570 Thompson Creek Road, to rezone the property from IB to R3, which is our high-density residential district. The reason given for the request is to move forward with a potential multifamily development, and this use is not permitted currently in the IB district. This property was originally annexed in the city in 2000 as part of a larger 70-acre tract. At the time, the intent was to utilize this for commercial retail development, and we have seen this to the south with the Walmart development, some of the out parcels, but this is yet to move this far north, and at this time, this type of development is not anticipated to extend beyond, the Walmart development. This property currently contains a farm. It sits on about 18.5 acres of land. The properties to the east are zoned planned commercial district. You see there that lighter pink color. They contain single-family houses, farmland. Highway 25E is to the west, and the properties to the north and south along Thompson Creek Road are also zoned PCD, but they contain residential uses on farmland. So single-family uses, farmland surrounding this potential development. The applicant did provide staff with a conceptual site plan showing 291 rental units. These are a mixture of 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom apartments. But it also contains a clubhouse, a pool, so some amenities. The developer is proposing the density at 15.7 units per acre. This is less than the 20 units per acre that is allowed in this district. But I will note that this is just a concept plan. This is not the final site plan. The final site plan, the final layout will be back before Planning Commission at a later date for a planned unit development request. This rezoning request from IB to R3 is compatible with the surrounding land uses. And as the mayor noted, planning commission did vote in support of this request at the last week's meeting, actually 6-0. Staff recommends support, or recommends approval of this request. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and Mr. Liddell's here also.
Let's get get a motion on the floor here, if there is one. This, of course, is a first reading, and approval of this would only set up a public hearing before final adoption. So is there a motion to move this on to public hearing?
So moved.
Motion Bivens. Need a second. We have a second. Questions or discussion? Are we ready to vote? Vote. That motion carries. And is set for public hearing on July 2nd. Thank you, Josh. We have a number of bids and contracts to award. First is the approval of change order number 2 for Petoskey Plastics. This is the site improvement phase 2. It increases the contract time by 135 days.
This is a fast track grant from the state for improvements at Petoskey. As you indicated, it's an extension of time. We're approving it, or considering approving it, because it is a pass-through for the city. We recommend approval.
Is there a motion to this recommendation?
Move for approval.
Motion centered. We have a second. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. And that motion carries. Also, we have for the approval of change order number 1 for Petoskey Plastics, site improvements phase 3 to reduce the contract amount by $152,440 due to the removal of the parking lot, paving, sidewalk, concrete, to increase the contract time by 30 days.
Again, this is another phase of the fast track grant. These adjustments are necessary to come into compliance with the grant requirements. We understand that Petoskey will go forward on their own funds for the list of improvements. We'd recommend approval.
Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Motion centered. And we have a second. Questions or discussion? We ready to vote? Let's vote. That motion carries. Next is the approval of a contract with East Tennessee Development District to provide grant administrative services for the Van Hool Fast Track Infrastructure Development Program project, the amount $15,000.
Council approved the fast track grant at your last meeting. This allows for the development district to handle the paperwork associated with it. The cost will be borne by the developer. We recommend approval.
Is there a motion to that recommendation? Motion Bivens. And we do have a second. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. And that motion carries. Next is the approval of a bid that we have for a leaf truck. The information was passed out at the pre-agenda meeting.
This is a piece of equipment that is included in the budget. We've had some difficulties in getting responsive bids and getting able to award, so we've been rushing to get this done. The recommendation is for award of bid number 2. It is a budgeted item, so needed item we recommend approval.
Is there a motion to this recommendation?
So moved.
Motion Bivens. Do we have a second? We have a second. Any questions or discussion on this one?
I didn't catch, did Tony mention the price?
It's $182, $855.
Do we have a motion to do? A second we do. We're ready to vote? Let's vote. That motion carries. Next is the approval to accept the best and lowest bid submitted by Miracle Software Systems, Inc. for a 1-year subscription service of Microsoft Office 365.
I'm still trying to get my head around the idea of renting software, but that's the way that the market is going these days. These are Microsoft products used throughout the organization. This is a reasonable price we recommend approval.
Is there a motion to this recommendation?
Move for approval.
Motion center. Need a second. We have a second. Any questions or comments?
Is that limited to a certain number of stations, or is that covers the whole city?
I think that's the whole city. I don't know if there is a limit on the number, but
Limit on each type of subscription, there's different types based on the user's needs, but it covers every employee's needs.
And that's 1 year, and if there are any updates, that's included as well.
Correct.
Any other comments, questions? Let's vote. And that motion carries. Next is the approval of the request for a proposal for property maintenance submitted by Lawman Lawn Care LLC to allow our city administrator to enter into contract negotiations.
this is the service we use to bring property into compliance when they fail to meet code requirements for things like weed lights and property maintenance. We have gone through the process of seeking proposals. With this authorization, I'll go into negotiations and bring back a contract for your consideration.
Do we have a motion?
So,
Motion Pettigo. Is there a second? We do have a second. Any questions or discussion?
this is the same company that's been doing it, Tony?
Yes, it is.
Anyone else? We ready to vote? Let's vote. And that motion carries. Next is the approval of interlocal agreement with the Hamlin County government for the services with the planning departments.
Council's previously discussed this in work session, as well as the county's discussed it in their committee level. This would provide planning services to Hamlin County with a certain prescribed number of hours and types of services. Our planning staff would help support their needs. The payment from the county to us would be $15,500. This is subject to approval by both governing bodies. We think we've worked out a good deal for both parties. We recommend approval.
We have a motion to that recommendation. Motion Smith. Need a second. We have a second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, let's vote. And that motion carries. And finally, we have the approval of the interlocal agreement with Hamlin County for mosquito spray.
Our public works operation provides this service. They have the equipment, the expertise, and the certification to do it. Hamlin County has some limited needs in the past we've tried to address. This agreement formalizes the relationship and sets a fee. We recommend approval.
Do we have a motion?
Move for approval.
Motion centered for approval. Is there a second? We have a second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, let's vote. And that is approved as well. Next, we move to the city administrator's report. Tom?
Excuse me. Last week, we went to the market to seek bids on the proposal to refinance some debt from Morristown Utility System. Mr. Bessler is here to describe the results of those bids and give you an update and report. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Bessler.
All right, thank you. Got here a final refunding report that I can hand out to everybody. To there for you, Tony. Good evening, council members. Chris Bessler with Cumberland Securities out of Knoxville, Tennessee. Good to see you all again. As city administrator said, we went to the market on June 10th to solicit bids on the refinancing of Morristown Utility Commission's sewer loan from 2013. That was following up the May 21st resolution that you previously adopted. The sale resulted in a total of 9 different bidders on the bond sale, and RBC Capital Markets submitted the winning bid with the lowest true interest cost of 2.27% after downsizing the deal. The total savings on the refunding, we had estimated that they would be about $1 million in gross savings. They ended up at 1.407 million, so 1,407,000. And the net present value savings, we had originally estimated about 800,000, and those ended up at 1,201,000. That's 8.58% of the refunded principal, so it's much better results. The market moved in the city's favor, most definitely. Due to the premium bid on bonds by RBC, the underwriter, the total amount of the bonds issued, instead of being the $14.5 million that was approved in the resolution on May 21st, ended up being $12,775,000. It will produce $14 million in principal, though, to pay the loan off on September 1st. The closing cost, likewise, also came in just over $40,000 less than what was projected on the report, the resolution, and what was submitted to the state. The report had about $210,000 of total closing costs, and the actual amount came in just under $170,000. So that was an additional savings of around $40,000 to the city. So you have the report in front of you. There's many pages in there. That's the full report that will go in the bond transcript that's used to produce all the bond documents as well, which the bond counsel prepares, and the mayor and administrator will sign. But the final result here is that the city ended up with greater savings, lower cost, lower principal outstanding in debt, and you have lower annual debt service than what you had previously.
I know how pleased you are to make this report. It's pretty doggone good.
It's much easier one to make.
I know you were disappointed that it didn't work out to go, but it was to our advantage to wait a few weeks, wasn't it?
We ended up having to push it, I think, 2 weeks. It ended up being basically harmless. So with the tariffs being announced on Mexico, put a little bit of fear into the market, and by the time those got stalled the Friday before we went to market, the market had not reacted as much as it would have just a few days later. So it ended up not causing any real harm.
And so September 1 is the payoff date to the holder now of the bond?
Yes, ma'am.
And that payoff is 14?
The part that we're paying off is $14 million. The already scheduled principal and interest that was otherwise due will be about $1.25 million, and that's going to come from the utility system.
Out of their general fund?
Out of their, what was already scheduled to be paid on September 1st.
I can say we listened to, took these bids, and Chris was on the conference call, we're going through this, I could still hear the smile on his faces as these bids came in. So it was definitely a good day for the city utility system.
That took us down from what, 3.6?
It's 3.65% to 2.27.
Thank you, Chris.
That is the meat of our report tonight. I just will remind council and the audience know we have a workshop following this meeting in this room where the city attorney will make a few reports to council. It should be relatively brief, but a few things need to be brought to your attention. That's all I have for tonight.
Thank you, Tony. We now open the floor for comments on any topic that anyone believes needs to come to the city council's attention. And the floor is now open. If there are any general comments that have not been brought up, anyone wishes to make.
I want to say thank you again. Same name, same address. I want to thank everyone for approving the budget to get the community center built. But I pray that this tax hike of, I believe it's $1.25 per property value, actually goes for the community center, pavilion, and other things that we've asked for and that you have approved. Sometimes individuals get to that point, oh, well, you know, we're gonna need that money for this project or that project. Well, we pray as a community that the money that you have allocated would actually go for what you approved it for. Here again, I'm asked that the planning committee could go over and look at West High and it's Bryce's Market. I'm sorry, it was sold. the kids go over there during their lunch break or whatever, after school, before school. And it's quite dangerous. And I'm like, traffic committee, whatever, be looking at these back roads to see just how fast these people are rolling, especially over here on Main Street, towards James Street. Captain Newman had promised me she would send some officers over there, and she did one day. But we need to protect our children, okay? People do speed a lot on a lot of these back streets. So let's look after the community at large. My wife pointed out to me that some person had rolled over a woman and her child in Jefferson City. Said something about the government told them to do that. I mean, people are high on these drugs, whatever, but we need to protect our children and the citizens. So please, have officers, even though they do patrol the back roads and stuff like that, don't get me wrong, but it's just areas like Maine, I mean, they speed down there. I mean, if you counsel people, especially you, Kate, you live over there towards Morningside, if you just come up there and you just, be like, excuse me, how is this person, you could get the tag number, whatever, how is that person speeding down Main Street? You know, not the Main Street up in here. It's like an open drag. I'm talking about cars, trucks, vans. And you'll see, this has to stop. And with the planning commission, if y'all please look into all that, especially the crosswalk. I appreciate it. God bless. Couple of seconds early. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel.
Bye.
Anyone else? We're done. We'll close this portion of the meeting and come to the time for any council members who wish to respond on any topic that may have come up today or anything else that you wish to address.
I would ask, Mayor, I believe Nigel has mentioned the pavilion at Civic Park. That's in the budget for
That
this
is
year.
included in the budget just passed, yes.
It will be going up, and it was in from the beginning. So you can thank Craig.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anyone else? Any comment?
On behalf of Chief Overholt, I'm sure he would like to remind everybody that they've got a week and a half that they can hold their phones up and talk on the telephone while they're driving. You've done a good job informing the public that it's gonna be an issue coming along here July 1st.
Yeah.
Chief, I believe it's gonna save lives, though.
Any other comments?
Yes, Mayor, it's something that Morristown Hamlin is going to be opening up their wound care unit, and that will be on July the 8th at 4 o'clock. And this is something new. We've had wound care and then some other entities that have provided, but this has a hyperbaric chamber. And it's very important for treatment of wounds that have to be treated extensively and over a long time period. And a lot of people have to go to UT in Knoxville. This is also, I found out as we went through it last week, it has the chamber in there that will treat diabetics. And this is something, you know, in Messico Falls, we've just had a new whole unit that deals with diabetics and diabetes and community outreach and so forth like that. So this is going to be very good for the treatment of diabetics and for also for individuals who have wounds. So it's open to the general public. If you will stop by at 4 o'clock, there'll be a ribbon cutting, and then it will be open for tours until 6 o'clock. And it's really something else, the oxygen that they have to use. I don't know if you know about a hyperbaric chamber, but you go in and you're totally oxygenated. I asked if it helped aging, but I asked if that could be another part of it. But this is something that is really important to Morristown, and it's a service that we haven't had, and will help people who can't get to Knoxville and need that treatment. So hope you can stop by on July the 8th.
What else? I'd like to close with just a couple of comments. Council, I think this is a turning point day for Morristown, and that not just with the action we took with the tax rate or the appropriation of money but a community center that's gonna serve a lot of needs for a lot of folks in a lot of age brackets. And
Amen.
there's been an exhaustive amount of study done on the location. The Heritage Park, where some folks say, well, why not there? The obvious reason is the location of access. There are no streets other than narrow two-lane streets to get to there. And the community center is going to be a high-activity center. The location that was chosen has access of four-lane roads from the east, west, north, and south. That was a significant part of this study. There's been financial study done. We've weighed the impact, as all of you know, and I know we've all been involved in that. And a high number of polls taken of the community over at least the last decade, where they were constantly asking. And I think that answering that need and answering those requests are the reason that we've got a broad amount of support for what some would have considered a radical tax change, and it's not so radical according to the analysis and study that we've done. So I want to congratulate this council, congratulate our city administrator and the administrative staff, Parks and Rec, and also Los and Associates. I think this is a significant day in Morristown history.
Amen.
Mayor, I knew that you were gonna say something like that, and I want to join in and applaud the council for making that monumental vote today. We've been talking about this since 1995.
That's true.
And we looked and did an exhaustive study of the potential of placing it at Morristown College. And we're pretty far along, and then decided that was not really the place to go. So I think we are at a turning point, as was mentioned by one of the speakers earlier. It is going to be a draw for industry, and I think Molly was one of those first industries that asked about that several years ago. What do you have for my engineers that I'm bringing here? And I believe it's one of those opportunities for all ages to come together and have promote wellness. And it's limitless as to what we can offer and the benefits that will be. And it's going to be up to us to promote it and to be sure that people know what's there and invite the community, and for it is the community's community center.
Amen.
Thank you.
Were there any other items to be brought before this council? If they're not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn, and remind that we have a work session following. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We are adjourned.